I'd like to welcome everybody to our Monday, June 8th regular school board meeting for the Page County School Board.
Ms. Henry? Yes. Mr. Boswell?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Bryant?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
All present.
Okay. So we got a moment of silence. Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So do we have any agenda changes or additions at this time? Sir, if not, I'll take a motion to approve the agenda.
I make.
So the motion by Mr. Thomas and a second by Mr. Boswell.
Mr. Boswell?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Brady?
Yes.
Ms. Henry?
Yes.
Ms. Bryant?
Yes.
Mr. Pepper?
Yes.
We have
One citizen comment, so I got something I need to read by the statement by the board. The Page County School Board welcomes citizen comment during regular meetings. School board members do not respond to public comment during a meeting. All comments should address a matter related to Page County Public Schools. The school board will not hear public comment that involves an individual student-related matter, the disclosure of which would violate applicable confidentiality requirements. The school board expects that each speaker will be courteous, modeling for our students how one can respectfully agree or disagree with others' views. Speakers will address their comments to the entire school board and not to one individual board member, nor to the superintendent, a staff member, or the audience. Speakers will have 3 minutes to present their comments from the podium. This time, I think Mr. Guzzi has 3 minutes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Keith Guzzi. Thank you for allowing me to address the board tonight. We're here tonight to address rewarding the students for their hard work at valedictorian, salutatorian, and class rankings in our school system. Our school system recognizes achievements in athletics, extracurricular activities, VOTEC Center. Just last Thursday at the VOTEC graduation, a student was recognized an award for outstanding work. Each year, the student participates in sports. Parents attend a mandatory meeting where the coaches tell us that they are student athletes. It's a privilege to play sports, and you must have good grades and stay in good school standings. And then we reward our athletes with trophies, recognitions, all the way to the state level, which is an impressive thing. And I've had a child that's done that, and it's been good. So why don't we reward students that excel in academics? I've heard from school administration that not all students can excel in academics, and I've also heard that you can manipulate the GPAs, which is crazy. The title valedictorian and salutatorian are not the two smartest kids in the school. They're the two kids that worked the hardest, that stayed up till 2 in the morning doing papers, that took the hardest classes, signed up for the hardest things, and put forth the most effort. Every 8th grader has a choice whether or not to do it or not to do it, and that follows them all the way through. No different than life. We all have jobs. We get judged. Of course, every year, a basketball player has that same opportunity in 8th grade. They can go to the gym every night and shoot three-pointers and be the best shooter in the state of Virginia. Same with track. You can run your kid to Bulldog Field or to the Greenway, and they could be an outstanding track. And we just had 2 of those win that award just this week, which is an exceptional thing. But they put forth the effort. Neither one of those kids showed up and ran for the first time this week. Why don't we want to recognize and reward students for their dedication and time? They put in the hard work. They took the hard classics. They were there for the academics. As I've also heard that we need to think about it. Interesting story. Mr. Hamilton's the head football coach at Luray. He felt this year it was good to add an award to the football recognition night for the most grit, the hardest working player, the player that showed up every day, the player that put forth the effort to help his team. Mr. Hamilton didn't ask for surveys. He didn't think about it for 3 years. He didn't implement it over the course of years. What he did was he awarded a kid the most grit, and that kid worked the hard this year to win that award. The last thing I'll leave you with, and I want you to think about, is this award again, and I'll restate it, is not for the smartest kid. Every eighth grader, if you had an eighth grader that didn't put forth the effort, that didn't go to school, and was ranked last in his class, and him and his parents sat down and said, we are going to change this. We're going to stay up till 2 in the morning. We're going to do everything we can possibly do. Get a tutor, they can work the hardest and achieve that award. It is what it is. Thanks for listening to me tonight. I hope you all put forth this and immediately turn it back on and reward the kids for scholarships and effort that they put forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, with that, the informational items, monthly financials.
Yes, good evening, school board members. You have been presented tonight with the monthly financial report for the end of May 31st, 2026, where total expenditures for Fund 1 were $3,945,616.68. This was a little less than May of last year, as noted at the bottom of the summary of expenditures for FY25, so a little bit less than May last year, FY25. You've also been provided with a local match calculation that we balanced with the treasurer's office. I want to make note on the local match for you. The reason that we have local match remaining at the end of May is because of the appropriation for the bonus that we did add in May. We would have been right there, either just slightly over or right at zero. So we do have a bit of local match left over because of the appropriation. I am predicting for June a local match to exceed our allocation by an estimated $680,000. That's a rough estimate right now based on what we do know that happened in May, and then also what we know already for actual expenditures for the first half of June.
Any questions, Ms. Miller? Hearing none, we'll go to information and policy updates. Ms. Clark?
Good evening, board. Ms. Breeden-Wallace, if you can go ahead and bring up my presentation that's in the agenda that's attached to it. So you did receive the summary in your packet, and that summary lists everything that VSBA brought out in their May update. So there was 50-some policies that were in there. Most of them, for the most part, were minor language changes, things that we just needed to update. So I did put together a presentation for you this evening that will show you the highlights. Okay. Can you scroll down with it? Okay. So in the new updates, we're going to be focusing on our academic planning and course selection. That's a new policy by state legislature that requires us to notify parents regarding course registration timelines and then drop dates for those same classes in the year. We plan on adding that information into our student code of conduct, and that will be coming forward to you in the next meeting or so. Policy ILBC will be the new College Board School Day program. We currently offer PSATs in our school day as part of our testing program. There is now legislation that's come forward that requires us to do that for SATs as well. So that will now be offered during the school day. We'll provide guidance with administration and set up that program and what that will look like and how we can develop that for our students and notify them of that. And that will also be included in our code of conduct as well. Policy JLB is our financial aid information and guidance. They put us a lot in these areas. This is new in regards to, we now have to provide, which we do, provide FAFSA information to schools and families. We always have a FAFSA night at the high schools, and we bring people in to have that done. They want it more defined. So we now have to establish the completion goals, how many FAFSAs. They want us to get more people to apply through FAFSA. However, I should stress, they stress to us, it's not a student requirement. They don't have to do it, but we are to encourage as much as possible and have those goals identified and then develop collection and data collection and reporting procedures of that. And we're looking to tie that into some 3E reporting that we're going to be putting on our website as well. Extracurricular activity notifications are new. We typically don't do this. Some school divisions had been, and this is where this came from. Social media cannot be the only communication of extracurricular activities, meaning if I'm, he brought up football, if I'm going to send out an update to practice for after school, I am not to post it on social media. It has to go out directly to parents and students. Our school division is already using the SportsU app, and they use that with their parents and with their students to get that information out. So we will continue that, and we will remind coaches again in July when we have a meeting with all coaches to go through our handbook about expectations on communication. KPA, safe storage, and prescription drugs and firearms. We will now have to notify families annually of how to do that. Where they can store their firearms, where they can store over-the-counter prescriptions. We do this currently when we do threat assessments or suicide assessments. We're already providing materials, but they want this now put on our website. And so we'll be doing, Casey's been working on a notification guide in conjunction with that we will be posting to the website that will have that information. So that will be in there as well. Professional development, it wasn't a new policy, just a change. They've added mental health awareness training that all staff will be expected to complete, and that will come out in our vector trainings. High quality instructional management, that's already materials, I should say, that's already underway. And then going in 27, 28, there will be some additional IEP training and specific intervention training related to those plans as well. So that'll be forthcoming, but is included in policy at this time. And then threat assessments, we will be updating our training. We're actually going to bring everybody back to the table. It's usually a 3-year cycle, but we'll bring everybody back to the table in July, administrators and SROs, so that way we're all saying the same language. But we have to now look at emergency substantial risk orders, which is a law enforcement term. So we'll be working closely with them to determine when we need to notify them that they need to go to a home to control weapons. But we'll get that updated in our training for this summer, because we have training that we're attending in July as well, and then we'll push that out in July. Are there any questions of the new policies?
Are the policies for the approval section of our meeting, that's not the same as these, right?
No, this is informational.
Just informational, it's
Yeah.
not.
There were some informational policies that I brought to you last month
Right.
that I removed from action because they updated them again, so they're back on the informational list for you tonight.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. For all of the new notifications that we have to do annually, where are they traditionally put for in this county? Is it done on the website? Is it done on the student handbook? Where is it done?
We typically put them in the student handbook and reference them back to policy, and then they sign off on the student handbook at the beginning.
So there's nowhere on the website they can find that same information. They have to refer back to a handbook that they got that they may not know where it is.
Well, we ask that they review that handbook and sign off on it, saying they've read all of those, and then they can click on the links that we do provide them to do the notification, and online as well. The handbook,
The handbook is
Yeah,
online.
the handbook is
Okay.
online.
All right.
Sorry, I misunderstood that. I thought you
All
were
right.
asking where else. But
I just know I would misplace that handbook.
no, it's online. Yeah. No, we know.
The extracurricular activity notifications, it says no longer, cannot be the only communication on social media. Will we continue to do social media on top of whatever you
We
put in
can
place?
do social media posts about like events we're hosting,
Okay.
but if there's a change and so forth, we will push that out, like Class Dojo at the elementary level or things like that to parents so they know, because usually that's an immediate thing if there's an update to something like that.
Okay. I didn't want us to walk away from social media.
No,
Will
I,
will that put a caveat on social media for the information check?
No, we'll still be putting information out. We'll just, if there's an immediate change to something like, band practice gets canceled today because there's a thunderstorm outside, we would be sending that through that app because not every parent has access to social media during their day.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay?
Mr. Samples, technology update.
Good evening, board members and Dr. Huber. This evening, I'll be covering some information regarding the implementation of a backup internet service across the division, including why it's being implemented, the risk it addresses, the process being used, and what it means going forward. What you see listed here, these are the systems our teachers and students rely on every single day. When internet access is interrupted, these systems become unavailable. It really comes down to one thing, ensuring that a single outage doesn't stop instruction across the entire division. Backup service is about continuity, making sure teaching and learning continue regardless of external disruptions. Having backup eliminates single points of failure, make sure that everybody can continue all the functions that they need throughout the day. And why now? Our reliance on internet-based instruction and systems has increased significantly in recent years. What may have been a temporary inconvenience in the past is now a much larger impact on classrooms and operations. Addressing this now allows us to be proactive rather than reacting after an incident, particularly when critical systems like 911 communication may be impacted. And all of that runs through the internet from our VoIP phone systems. Process for securing service. Much like other areas of procurement, we define our needs, evaluate providers, and compare proposals based on cost and reliability. We select the option that best fits our needs with an emphasis on value and implement it with minimal disruption. The focus throughout is responsible use of funds and long-term reliability. And what this means going forward, the division's primary internet service will remain unchanged and continue to function as it does today. We are on the end of a first year of a 3-year contract with Brightspeed, so everything's going well with that. Backup connection is designed to operate automatically during its disruption, so really the end users don't see but maybe a hesitation in their internet service while it automatically switches over. Phones are a little bit different. There is a little bit of a manual adjustment by me that has to be done, but it's done within about 5 minutes of noticing that there's an interruption. And hopefully in the future that can become automatic as well. All this helps minimize the impact on classrooms and operations. From a day-to-day perspective, staff and students don't notice any change under normal conditions. This implementation also provides a significant cost savings compared to the division's current backup service arrangement. So that's carryover from our previous service provider. The need for a backup service was realized, and we maintain that at a significant cost to the division, but this is going to take care of that in both regards. But it's a necessity these days, as this presentation has outlined. Overall, this improves reliability while also being a more efficient long-term solution for the division. If you have any questions, I will do my best to answer them.
Did you have a primary system outage over the last year? And
Yes,
did
sir.
backup pick up the slack right away?
Yes, sir. So we have had Brightspeed. Like I said, this is the end of the first year of our current contract with them. We have actually had several outages throughout the school year this year, and none of which really were noticed by staff. Again, slight hesitation. Going back several years prior to having this backup service, I remember a day or two, even within the last 5 years, where we were dismissing early because we had no internet. So having this will definitely cause that to not happen again.
Who's our backup provider?
So currently we are using Lumen. That's the carryover from, we had a 3-year contract with them prior to going through E-rate and awarding Brightspeed. They won the contract through their bid. So
we still are using that leftover service from Lumen. Brightspeed is now our primary, so Lumen's our backup. The contract that we have now engaged with is Segra. If anybody's familiar with Lumos out of Waynesboro, they are now Segra. They went through some changes. So they are coming and bringing in fiber to Page County Middle School alongside our existing fiber with Brightspeed. If you could go by Page Middle anytime in the next, 2-3 months probably, if you see somebody digging some out by the road, that's probably going to be them coming up to our middle school.
You mentioned savings over the current program.
Correct.
Have you been able to figure out how much that will amount to?
Yes. So currently, out of contract, our service with Lumen is costing us roughly $3,300 per month. That was offset by E-rate savings while we were within contract. Our new contract with Segra will give us an $850 a month contract. It's not the same level of service, and Lumen would not allow us to downgrade. They said, they moved out of the area and handed everything off to CenturyLink/Brightspeed. So it was either you maintain what you have with us now, or you disconnect and we're out of the area and we're done. So, we're going to be in a new 3-year contract with Segra, and it's $850 a month, but the service that we're going to be provided from them will take care of all of our bandwidth needs from it on a day-to-day basis should we have to fall over to a backup.
Is there any benefit, since we have two providers, to split the daily usage of running one side off of this provider and another off of the other provider or anything like that?
So it actually behooves us to maintain the primary secondary because there's so many network and firewall configuration things that have to be done. There are some instances where you might do that, but it gets a lot into the configuration and try not to make it too complex.
Okay.
When the award was given to Brightspeed for the primary source, was one of the areas of concern put in there that they have to be up and on 95% of the time, 90% of the time? So what is part of their contract that they say that they're going to be reliable?
Yes, there are what's called SLAs or service level agreements, and part of that is they're supposed to maintain a 99.9% uptime, but things do happen. As part of the SLA agreements, if they go over, it's a certain threshold, like if it's, and I don't have it in front of me, but if it's over, so let's say 12 hours of service interruption, we get a discount of 10-15% off of our next bill. There's another level if it's over 24 hours, so on and so forth. So that's built into that. But with backup service, if something were to happen where that does go down, and it's happened numerous times over the past few years where Culpeper, Northern Virginia, Reston, somewhere along the way, somebody digs where they shouldn't, and you get a pretty little rainbow display in the ground. We've had a full day's 24 plus hours outage where, this takes care of that, and we're still functioning, able to go to school and do all the things we need to do.
I'm glad to hear performance expectations are in contract.
Yeah,
'Cause that'll
yes.
help us pay for the backup when we need it, those discounts.
Correct.
Awesome.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, adult meal price, Ms. Camp.
Good evening, board. I've met some of you, but not everyone. I'm Kate Campbell. I'm the supervisor of nutritional services here. I'm just going to provide you with some information on a proposal of increase in adult meal prices for next school year. Each year, the Virginia Department of Education School and Community Nutrition Program Office comes out with a worksheet that we have to do each year. It does a calculation to tell us the minimum amount that we would have to charge for adult meal prices for breakfast and lunch. So this year, our minimum that we would have to go up to would be that for breakfast, $2.94, for lunch, $5.02. I'm going to propose to you all at some point the breakfast to be $2.95 and lunch to be $5.05. Any questions?
I have a question.
No
It says for non-enrolled child, what is it if they don't have, if they do have an enrolled child? Is it the same price or is?
So that's just what they call a meal for someone who's not a student here, in terms of school nutrition. So this is adult only. All students are still for free. Adult prices are the same regardless of if they have a student that attends or not. So it's just an adult price.
That just threw me. It's like.
Yeah, I understand why they did.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure payment is digital most of the time, but I find it interesting that they slotted pennies, right? With
Yeah.
that not being
Yeah.
a thing anymore.
Yeah, well, the lunch price is actually $5 and 1.5 cents. So I, yeah,
That's how the government does.
right. Yeah.
It makes sense to somebody.
Money.
Somebody's.
Yes. All right. Any questions for her? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Our federal consolidated application, Dr. Huber.
School performance and support
Whoa,
framework.
whoa, sorry.
Skip one.
Sorry, Ms. Hamel. School performance and support framework, Ms. Hamel.
We'll actually be doing that one together.
You will?
Yes. Let Ms. Hamill get it started and then I'll finish it up.
Absolutely. Good evening, board. It is springtime. The school year is over. So we've done a whole lot of testing throughout this school year. And that, of course, culminates in end of course and end of school year SOL testing. That data is leveraged by the state to designate schools for what is now called the School Performance and Support Framework. And you saw this in January. Those of you that were on the board at that time, when I presented at that time, I did some quick summary information and showed you the results from 24-25. If you recall, the state didn't release data this year until December to us, that finalized data. This is a new system. So this coming school year will be the second year that we have lived in this new framework. And it's really a paradigm shift, a mindset shift for us. We historically, educators have lived in pass rates, and you're looking for a minimum pass rate in order to not be put on warning or put an improvement by the state. This pass rates are still a part of it, but they're not all of it. So I want to break down the framework for you all. Stop me if it gets too jargony. I live in this, and I recognize that not everyone does. Even in education, it's the learning curve is huge. So please feel free to stop me midway if I have something that concerns you or I'm not clear. So we're going to start by going through the components. Oh, I can do it. Look. Here's hoping. Okay. So starting with the sort of basic components of the framework, right? There's 4 components that are put into this. And at elementary and middle school, there's really only 3. So the components are mastery, which is a focus on mastered content according to SOL performance, right? So this is the area we can best predict. It's not exact because there's some other factors at play, but this is the one that right now you could sort of best calculate and predict based on end of course fall testing and end of course spring testing results. Growth. The focus in growth is, does a student exhibit expected growth from year to year? And you get certain points under this category based on their growth. All of these categories have indices within them. So it's numbers multiplied by a multiplier that calculates into points based on, as opposed to percent of points possible. And then there's calculations that gets you the actual framework score in that area. Readiness is another component that is true in all 3 levels, elementary, middle, and high. And readiness is a focus on preparing students for the next level, right? So in elementary, the only component in readiness is chronic absenteeism. It is our students in school. In middle school, it's divided into 2 things, and that's chronic absenteeism and also advanced coursework. So what are we offering for high school credit in specifically mathematics? is where we sort of get our points for that. So advanced coursework in the middle schools. High school attendance, and you see it's no longer 10% at high school, it's 5%. There's a 6-year adjusted graduation rate. And basically the 6-year cohort looks at students who maybe needed a longer time to graduate. Typically, they're identified as a student with a disability. They're pursuing an applied diploma, which under previous language you may be familiar with it would be a modified diploma. So that's part of that 6-year graduation rate. And then the high schools, you've heard the buzzword of 3 E's, right? Enrollment, enlistment, employment. And we get some points based on some things that happen for students in those categories at the high school level alone. The final component at the high school level is graduation. So that is how well a student, I'm sorry for the typo there, that is basically of the cohort we started with that still live in our community and exist in our schools who have graduated. So that's the 4-year on-time graduation rate, and that's a federal requirement. So as we move to the next, I'm not used to driving, you can tell. As we move to the next, this is just another breakdown, right? So elementary schools, 65% of our framework score is rooted in mastery. So there's a heavy content emphasis as we're building foundational skills. And then you look at it, 25% is rooted in growth. Are students meeting expected growth or exceeding expected growth from one year to the next? And growth in the elementary school, it's important to note, is calculated in 4th and 5th grade only. It's rooted in, you take their performance on 3rd grade reading and math SOLs, and then you compare it in 4th grade. So there's no comparison for 3rd graders to demonstrate growth. It's 4th and 5th only. And then there's that readiness component, the chronic absenteeism, that totals to 100%. That's how our framework score is established. Moving over to middle school, that mastery percentage goes down a little bit to 60%. Growth goes down to 20%. So the growth metric exists in grades 6 through 8 as well. So again, you're comparing the prior year's SOL performance in reading to this year's SOL performance in reading, the prior year's math performance in reading by child to this year's performance in math. I'm sorry, I tripped over my words there. So they have that for growth, and then that readiness piece, 10% chronic absenteeism and 10% advanced coursework. And they take that and calculate it all together with lots of different numbers and basis, and that totals 100% to get you your framework score. High schools, you'll see mastery goes down to 50%. That content emphasis decreases because there's some other things that we're focused on at that level as well. The graduation rate is 15%, and readiness is 35%. That totals 100%. So that's sort of the difference by level. So it is an apples to oranges comparison from elementary to middle to high. Yes, sir.
What are some of the reasons that readiness would change from elementary to middle, or middle to high school?
So
That
readiness, I didn't mean to interrupt you, sorry.
Yeah, but just a percentage. Why would it? What's the purpose of the change?
So they're pulling a little bit from mastery and pulling a little bit from the growth at the middle school. And the sort of justification that the state would use is that their focus in middle school is preparing them for the rigor and life experiences they will get in high school. So that academic coursework, it is largely rooted in what courses do we offer for high school credit for the advanced coursework. So that's a significant component. The high school level, that 3 E's and graduation, they have to pull that. It's 100% no matter what. They have to pull that from somewhere. So it is an adjustment for sure. I have not read a lot of it. The 3 E's, I think it's valid because it does take into account career and technical education. It takes into account performance on the ASVAB test. It takes into account performance on AP tests, etc. So I think as the options and experiences vary, they tried to vary the framework as well as they get older. So you saw this in January. Basically, there's lots of calculations, and we're going to break that down. There's lots of calculations that go into overall performance categories, right? And if you are a school that it gets from 65 to 79 points, you're a school that's considered off track. If you're a school whose framework score lands you somewhere between 80 and 89, you're on track. If you are a school that has 90 points or more, and if you recall, our high schools are 102, 103, like you can go beyond 100, that puts you in the distinguished category. Needs intensive support means your framework score, it's not a pass rate, remember, it's a framework score, is at 65 points or below 65 points. The other thing that you'll remember us talking about in January is if you as a school, either as a school or in our case, a subgroup within your school, whether that's ELs, economically disadvantaged, one of our racial or ethnic groups, or the one that tripped us up is students with disabilities. If you have a group, a subgroup, and what counts as a subgroup is any tested population that's categorized in that group of 15 or more. If you have less than 15, it's too small to count. If you have more than 15 students who are identified as a student with a disability in 3rd through 5th grade at the elementary school, for example, and those students underperform, then you can end up being identified. And if you are identified, it automatically drops your performance category rating 1 level, right? And we saw that with one of our schools where they had an on-track score, but because we had a subgroup identified, it dropped them 1 level down to off track, which is, from my chair, it felt like we were being kicked while we were down, but it's the state framework that all schools are existing within. And this is, of course, these points, an indicator score is calculated from each component, and then all of them are totaled up, they're weighted, right? Mastery at 65, 60, 50, readiness 25, 20, et cetera. And that's how you get your total score. Bless you.
Thank you.
All right. So the timeline of sort of results, where we live in this. For SOL testing, we test in January at the high schools. Remember, we're 4x4 blocks, so we have end-of-course testing in the high schools in January. And then our middle schools, the only semester courses that we deal in for testing there is civics and 8th grade science. So there's a small amount at the middle schools, full bore testing at the high schools in January. The elementary, everything is year long, so we test them in the spring. Our local data analysis, you're familiar with our CSIP process. You know we're members of the CIP, VALS data, CIP data. All of those data meetings have become normalized in Page County. We are growing on responding to data and leveraging it in a meaningful way to inform instruction. That's been a priority for us before my time, but certainly since I've been here as well. So that is an ongoing habit at schools and something that we have been digging in on this year as an instructional team for sure. In the summertime, you submit final data that's combined with some information from master schedule, the SRC report that we, a student record collection that we submit. They calculate students who have transferred out, transferred in, all of those things. There's lots of rules and regulations around, they came 20 hours after instruction, so that score does not count for the school or division. And it used to be that you hand-coded your transfers. The state has taken that, and they pull it all from SRC at this point. So there's some variables that you it's beastly to try to predict them because the state is pulling it from a greater body of data collection. Our fingers crossed, what the state is advertising is that we will have our final ratings and framework score and categorization in October of this year. So that's when we'll know for sure. We will of course be working and deep diving in that data to do our very best to anticipate, but it's something that until you get it from the state, it's hard to trust it 100%. So let's dig into each of these and we'll just talk so you have a frame of reference or a sense of how they're calculated, right? So mastery and how it is calculated. There's a weighted index based on student performance on their SOL tests, right? There's advanced, if they are pass advanced, meaning that they scored somewhere between 500 and 600 on their SOL. They are considered advanced, and the number of students in a school who achieve advanced in reading, for example, you take that number, let's say it's 40 students, you multiply that number times 1.25, and that goes into your points calculation. Pass proficient, if you're 400 to 499, the index for that multiplier of the number of students who perform within that rating is 1. Fail basic, which is you missed the score, but it wasn't completely low, there's a multiplier of 0.75. And then fail below basic, there's a multiplier of 0.25. Science is a little bit of an outlier here because science isn't calculating currently. They're talking about it to come, but they have not. Last year they did not, and we do not believe this year they will, but there's lots of unknowns still. They don't calculate it below basic. A fail is a fail in the area of science. So each test or student falls within the performance category. We take that total by school and division, and we multiply it by the indices, and that's the root of the data. So here's just to sort of bring that data to life, right? So here's an example. This is sample data for elementary math. We had 85 students test. That's our denominator, right? Or number of students tested. Of those 85, I don't need to point at them. Of those 85, 12 of those students scored in the advanced range. It's important to note in the advanced range, when we transitioned in education, and I can't give you the exact date, 7 or 8 years ago, we transitioned to, you may have heard the phrase CAT testing, computer adaptive testing, and this is in 3rd through 8th grade. Across the state, when that transition happened, we saw our advanced pass rates take a dive. And what the computer adaptive test does, if you're familiar, is it responds to your performance. So if you're performing well, it makes it very, very rigorous, right? I can speak as a parent. I have an 8th grade daughter. She came home convinced that she had failed an 8th grade SOL because it was so difficult, and she scored well advanced. It was difficult because she was doing well. And so kids adjust to that and all of that. CAT testing has not yet reached the high school. When the state initially rolled it out, there was plans for it to do so. There's not been recent conversation about that. So the high school test is flat. It does not adapt to your performance at all. Fail basic, pass proficient on this sample data set, we had 61 students. Fail basic 9, below basic 3, 0 points. Sometimes that happens. There's some verbiage in all communities across the state of I'm going to opt out of testing. The reality is there is no opt out. It is a refusal. That's the state language, and that counts as a 0 for us. So when parents refuse to allow their children to participate, it does count against the school and division. So you take this math, right, and I just worked it out for you here. 12 times 1.25 gets you 15. 61 times the 1.0 index, and so on, giving you a total mastery connection points earned of 83.5, right? So then if you look across the top, we deal in percent of points possible. So to calculate that, you divide the mastery points earned by the number of students tested and then multiply by 100. So you see on this data set, the percent of points possible was 98.23. Indicator score is then taken by multiplying that number, the percent of points possible, by the indicator weight. This is math, part of mastery, and math and elementary mastery is weighted at 22.5%. So you take that 98.23, multiply it by 0.225, that's where that 22.1 comes from on the framework. So as someone who is not a natural mathematician, I've learned a lot about some nuanced formulas in spreadsheets. It's no small feat that goes into each of these. The state calculates it for us, but we're not always patient people, so we try to do our best with it as well. But that's an example of mastery. So let's move into growth. So growth, it's important to note that the growth measure for 25-26 is under revision. It is not what was used for last year's data. It is currently out for public comment. The Board of Education on their website says that they are going to vote on that in the June 24th, 25th work session. However, I spoke with someone 2 weeks ago at the Office of Accountability about this, and they said it would be July before any information came out. So the growth table is not finalized. So growth, and I'll show you an example of this. Growth is rooted in a vertical scaled score. Every SOL test, we're used to speaking of them in terms of 200 to 600, with anything above a 400 being passed, 500 advanced. Also, in deeper reports that we get, tests are assigned a vertical scaled score, and that's typically a 4-digit number. So the growth is measured based on ranges within the vertical scaled score. So Virginia will use a value table to determine growth for students, and value tables are organized by test level, right? So they have the failure ranges, pass ranges, advanced ranges, fail below, across the levels there. And again, growth is only applicable for students in grades 4 through 8. We don't have the historical test data in 3rd grade, and it does not apply to high schools because it's not an apples to apples. They don't take reading, math every week. So here is the proposed, and I should say proposed, this was the January proposed. This has been an ongoing conversation across the Board of Ed. I am not 100% confident that this is the current draft of the proposal, but I can't find that published anywhere. So this is what it would look like. So these are vertical scale scores, just to come up here. These are vertical scale scores. Here's our fail below basic. There's a range 1, range 2. There's basic, range 1, or range 3, 4, proficient, and advanced. And basically, the tables off to the right, these are current and published in the updated consolidated plan on the Board of Ed website. And it shows you what you're going to get for index, right? On the top one is year-over-year measure. If they move back one range, you get 0. If they stay in the same, it's a 0.5 multiplier. If you stay in the same range and you're in range 4, then it is a 0.75. If you started in range 5 through 8, it's 0.75. And then if you stay in the same range and you're well up there in 6, 8, or 6, 7, it's a 1 point. So clear as mud, right? Yes, sir.
I have a question. Okay. This takes me back to Mary Washington University when they first came out with it many years ago. Back then it was called the growth model. So let me make sure I've got my head wrapped around what you just said. So if a 3rd grade student takes the math test and makes the scale score 900, then 4th grade comes up and does better. Let's go up to the next one. In other words, it was
if they
basic.
advance one level.
And then he goes up to below basic in range 2. You get a growth score on that student because they grew. Same thing if they went to 5th grade. If he jumps 2 levels, you get that growth score. Even though he still may be failing, you still get points given on that growth score.
Right. So it's rooted in the vertical scaled score,
Right.
not pass fail. Now, what I have not dug in on, I might have just given myself a headache considering it, is I haven't correlated the vertical scaled score with what's the minimum. Obviously 13, 16, or 1401 is the minimum vertical scaled score you can have for passing, but I haven't played that out specifically. on it. A few years back, as building principal, we had a version of this, and you were looking and over and up a range and all of the things. You were really digging in on it. Right now, it's not quite as simple as that. And that was on the growth assessments, not actual SOL. Yeah. Did that answer your question, Mr.
Yep.
Frieden? Okay. So, and you'll see there's 0 points if you move back, if you stay the same, this, that, the other, and then it goes down through, and that is attached. So this is what growth is rooted in grades 4 through 8.
And that goes back to the other chart that you gave us on the new framework number. So you can have the mastery and then you can have the growth. So
Yes.
that can up your score
They
if you have the
calculate your
growth, even
score.
though the mastery is not there.
Yeah, yeah, it can up it to an extent. Remember, it's weighted less in the
Yes.
total framework, but it does, growth helps you. And we saw this year that where growth hurt us too, as we dug in with principals
When you
on
go
that
back.
data, and we said, listen, growth in math is something that we really have to focus on, and we dig into the why and all of that as we look at it. But certainly, yes.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. All right, so readiness and how it's calculated. This is just the readiness weighting. Chronic absenteeism, 10% for a total of 10% at elementary. Middle, as we discussed, absenteeism and advanced coursework for a total of 20% as part of their framework weighting. And then high school, the chronic absenteeism is 5%. The 3E readiness is 25%. And the 6-year graduation rate is 5%, totaling 35%. The advanced coursework calculation, just as you go down to middle school, the numerator is the students passing end-of-course math SOL tests in 6-8, and the denominator is students taking high school math at the middle school and students who scored advanced on Math 7. That's what goes into this calculation. So high school level, the 3 E's. You see for enrollment, associate's degrees are weighted at a 1.25. And I believe this year, sitting at graduations, that we had 7 associate's degrees awarded between the 2 high schools, right? So I know that number now. There's other numbers that aren't quite so easy. The rest of enrollment is rooted in AP testing, CLEP testing, things like that, the result of which we don't have back yet. Those get reported directly to the state from those vendors and come around July-ish for that. Moving on to employment, this is a lot of CTE completer language. So the highest point value as an index, the multiplier, is 1.25, and that's given to a CTE completer who earned a state-approved industry-recognized credential in a high-demand field as defined by VOEE and completed a high-quality work-based learning experience, right? We can anticipate, they have redefined what qualifies as a high-quality work-based learning experience for us this year. So we can anticipate we'll see less points likely in this category of the 3 E's because they've frankly made it more difficult, right? A student going to an internship. This year we have a student at an optometrist's office. Because we're not offering coursework at the high school with a minimum hours requirement directly related to that, it cannot count as a high-quality work-based learning experience in the future. I feel the same way that you do, Ms. Bryant, on that. I don't understand, and no one asked.
Well,
That's-
especially about, they're really not considering resources.
Yes,
And
yes.
so then you're disqualifying the students for, pursuing and working harder in other directions. So that's
Penalizing.
100%.
Yeah. So, and we've had conversations as a division, we're shifting it to internships. And it's not that we don't want our students to have those experiences. It's that we understand that we're not going to get credit, but there's bigger picture things for these kids, right? So that's a conversation that we've had. But just as you think about our framework moving forward, we're likely to see a dip in the 3 category as a result of some of the redefinitions. Moving on to enlistment. These are rooted in the ASVAB scores that our juniors take. So you get the highest multiplier if you score a 65 or higher. Mind you, 31 is the minimum score for military eligibility, but 65 or higher. So across our division, when I looked at our ASVAB scores, I believe we have 23 kids that hit that category, right? And then moving through a score of between 50 to 64. Again, I did that math. It looks like we have 16. And when we look at the, you met that military entrance score of 31, or between that and the next rank up, we have 41 students who hit there. So we'll get some points there. There's talk about the ASVAB. The other frustrating thing from my perspective is this is clearly a moving target, right? Last year, it's different than this year. And there's also the joint legislative action recommendation. There's 13 recommendations that'll be put into place that I believe will hit us next year. So as deep as I'm diving in this, it's going to change. And we'll just roll with the punches because that's what we do. Readiness at the high school level, right? So this is sort of a sample. That 6-year graduation rate, that is part of that readiness score. Applied studies inclusions, that just references that it broadens the diploma definition beyond what is included in the 4-year graduation cohort. So the extended graduation rate metric, it accounts for students who require additional time or specialized tracks, right? So this is a basic sampling of data from an indicator report on the 6-year federal graduation. So let's say we gave out 68 standard diplomas, 64 advanced, and then in the 6-year we can count those applied studies. So that gives you 136 total. So the number of cohort is the total number of students in that adjusted cohort. It goes back 2 years. The 6-year federal graduation indicator is the number of diplomas from the 6-year cohort divided by the number of students in the cohort multiplied by 100. And then the indicator score is that 6-year federal graduation indicator multiplied by the weight of 0.05. And that's 5% of the total framework score. So you pull each of these and then you weight them and then you bring it all down.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's data and mathematics.
How did I get us gone off the rails there? All right, sorry about that.
You're on a roll. I was just going to let you.
So this is something you saw. I presented this in January. This is the Sarah Hamill brain way of breaking down this data in a way that's not overwhelming. So taking it and saying, okay, here's the indicator score, and then the total points within each category, giving you a total ranking. Now, one of the things we see in our division is our English learner population in most of our schools is too small. So whatever percentage, like that 10% you see, gets redistributed across the other 7 indicators at the high school level. At the other levels, it's redistributed a little bit differently. So the percentage for that particular category might jump. So in this one, you see the 15% weight becomes 16.7. And that becomes your multiplier to get your indicator score, and then you reweight all of that. So it's a lot, and I understand that it's muddy, and we certainly don't expect expertise from y'all, but we just wanted to share what goes into that framework score and how we're approaching it. So I think Dr. Huber.
Sure. Yep. I'll take it from here. So thank you, Ms. Hamill, for the great work on that. I enjoyed collaborating on this presentation with you. Board members and audience, again, one of our goals is just to try to give you tools to be able to make sense of numbers and data as it's shared with you, to be informed of kind of what we're facing as a division when it comes to those external measures and what we're focused on and why. So hopefully this is a nice kind of clean package to be able to talk further about data, and it will be an ongoing pattern for us to bring this type of information to you on a regular basis. So with that being said, we wanted to look at levers of change. So currently, the levers of change in the school division that we have been using either for multiple years or were implemented this year. You can see really 6 items listed here in the plan. One of the biggest levers of change that we use as a division are our comprehensive school improvement plans. These are kind of our framework, our guiding sort of document around goals for our schools that not only address where they may be headed for their support framework scores, but also how they align to our strategic plan overall as a division. This is year 2 that every school has been a part of that process. So regardless of whether you're distinguished or you're identified or not, every school in the division goes through the comprehensive school improvement plan process with us, alongside of us, and includes at a minimum quarterly reviews and data discussions with division level and school level teams. We have and will continue to work on updated curriculum. As you know, we implemented a new HQIM for math this year, and we'll continue to work on that process for fidelity of implementation next school year. And we'll be launching our new ELA curriculum coming this fall, which was voted on earlier in the spring through the process that Mrs. Hamill and others led. So we're excited about that, and 2 of the main subjects that we're working on in terms of our support framework and federal identification to have high quality resources and instructional materials for our kids in their hands and our teachers as well. MTSS training and design is ongoing. This is a partnership at the division level, but also the building level with our directors team and our instructional team, looking at multi-tiered systems of support for our students. You may hear words like intervention or RTI groups or those sorts of things. That's an ongoing process that continues to be refined with our principals and looking at how do we strengthen Tier 1 core instruction while also ensuring that our students with the largest needs are having those needs met as well through our intervention design. You look to the far right, our goals for our schools in their CSIPs, as well as in our goal setting with directors and principals and others, are aligned with our strategic plan. So the essential actions that we're working towards and you're working toward as a board are connected back to annual goals and annual evaluations as well of our staff. Leadership training and support is another lever of change that's a focus for us, and I'll talk a little bit about that here in a second and what that looks like. And then just our ongoing focus on professional development. We are fortunate that in the FY27 budget, we look to continue to expand our professional development offerings for our staff. We had the State Literacy Conference as an example that Mrs. Hamill took a team to this year that was really profound and made a huge impact on our educators and leaders that attended. So those are just some examples of things kind of in this current year that have been in place. If we go to the next slide, we'll look at levers of change for the future. And these are items as part of our planning as a leadership team that you'll see and hear more about as the next school year gets started here very soon, believe it or not. So one of the things we're really excited about is a standardized instructional framework that's going to start in the fall. And what that looks like is an instructional framework that outlines what a school and what a classroom in Page County Public Schools should look like, what students should be doing, what teaching should look like, and how that is designed to strengthen that Tier 1 core instruction. It's something our instructional team has worked on under the leadership of Mrs. Hamill this spring, and we'll be rolling that out in the fall. That's our foundational instructional document and kind of guiding principles, so to speak. We're working on our inquiry design models for social studies. Another thing our teachers are really excited about, moving away from kind of the standardized test approach in social studies to a model that focuses more on inquiry design, students learning, writing, and solving real-world problems and analyzing those problems and learning through doing. So we're excited about that. Our teachers began training this spring, and that will continue to launch in the fall of 26. Fidelity of implementation. This is a huge area of focus for us instructionally. So we have this fantastic math curriculum that we launched during this school year. as well as an ELA curriculum coming right behind it for next school year. And we realize how important it is to make sure that that curriculum is being used, that the expectations are clear on how that curriculum is to be used and what should be supplemented and not, and how that aligns with our instructional framework. So you're really seeing some kind of very intentional efforts to improve Tier 1 instruction if you connect all these dots together. Our updated CSIP process to reflect the new support framework, Mrs. Hamill's working on that alongside of the instructional team as well, to adapt that piece. I can tell you it's really exciting. I've already had 4 CSIP meetings with principals for next year. So we've already had them the past 2 weeks preparing for what we're getting ready to do. And those CSIP meetings and discussions and data dives are incredibly important. Intentional collaboration. We realize that we have a workforce and teachers that are not necessarily trained to be teachers. And that is the reality of our workforce at the moment. And we need to support those folks a little bit more intentionally and provide a lot of support. And so Mrs. Hamill and Dr. Johnson are working together from both the personnel side and instructional side to bolster what does that new teacher program and support look like, and what do we do to help those folks have a more successful beginning, get the skills that they need, and stay with us as they learn those skills. And then looking at strategic staffing, this has been an ongoing process throughout the spring, as you're aware of as a board. Really looking at, do we have everybody, all the right people in all the right places is kind of the way we look at it. And we're playing to people's strengths, making sure our buildings that have specific needs are getting the people that they need to address those specific needs, particularly when we look at our students with disabilities population or schools that are struggling with various academic areas. So those are levers of change, things you'll hear about more as we go through the upcoming school year. Challenges. It's not that easy, as you're probably aware. There are plenty of challenges, and we're excited for the leadership opportunity to take those challenges head on. These are just a few, and that list will probably grow as we continue to break down data and look further. Teacher shortage impact cannot go understated. That is a reality for us as a division, as well as many other divisions across the state. The lack of teachers coming out of pre-service programs with licenses and certifications to teach is dwindling, and there's not much signs that that's going to improve. And so we have had many instances, even in the meetings we've had with principals as we talk about next year, where fundamentally the issue was just having folks who are not necessarily ready to take over a classroom by themselves, and what that looks like. You know, someone who doesn't know how to be a teacher is tasked with literacy instruction for third graders. That's not easy. So that's a challenge that we're going to continue to work on. Increased rigor. I don't know if Mrs. Hamill talked about this. She probably did. The 400 is no longer the pass as we move into next year. So looking at what those cut scores are going to be and where they land, they're going up. And so that's going to be a challenge for us, and how that all plays out and shakes out, and that target is moving. As a division, we, prior to any of that and without influence from that, believe that to fundamentally improve instruction, the bar must raise. So when we talk about why not Page, that's directly linked to that bar has to come up regardless of where you live or what your circumstances may be. We're going to set the bar high, and we're going to have high expectations for ourselves as educators as well as our kids, and help them get there.
Can I weigh in on that
Sure.
as well? The other thing that we see around rigor is the standards revised periodically. And the most recent revision, social studies is a great example of this. It's part of what drove our desire to move towards the inquiry model, is there are more standards and pieces of information, essential skills and understanding that we're expected to impart and teach children than there are days of the school year, right? And the rigor is moving younger and younger. right? My history, most recently is that of an elementary principal. I believe in the power of play and learning for young children. However, that's not what it used to be because we have too much to do. So the standards, and I'm a proponent of rigor. I'm not an excuse maker, and I believe in rigor. I wish that maybe it was phased in a little differently, but it is part of what we're up against.
Thank you. And lastly, just on this slide, I think everyone again in this room and watching online knows complex needs and behaviors amongst our students continue to negatively impact instruction. And really looking at how those tiered systems of supports can help those kids. We are all in, all of us at the division school level, on doing everything we possibly can to help kids manage those big feelings and manage those emotions that they have and be successful students. And that takes resources and takes a whole lot of work by some very talented people to continue to address that. So,
I just had a question, just the new curriculum adjustment kind of stirred the pot for me.
Sure.
I had a math teacher that had taught the subject for a while. In fact, she had been my dad's teacher. And I think the book could have been the same book.
Mm-hmm.
And when I look at what happens now, how do you bring a 4-year out of college teacher up to speed with the new system that
Not even 4 years out of
now?
college.
Mm-hmm. I'll let you take that, sir.
Yeah, I think change is hard. I think we're in a great position for the ELA curriculum, frankly, because our teachers at the elementary level significantly disliked the previous curriculum. So we're in a decent spot there. But I also, and I've prepped principals for this and our adoption committee for this, it looks and feels very different. One of the elements of a high quality instructional material is a lot of it is more scripted, right? Which you could argue is a benefit for new and inexperienced teachers because they have a script, right? But if you can't intuit what you're trying to teach, the objectives or intended learning outcomes because you didn't plan it, that's a whole nother challenge in itself, right? So some divisions, and I worked in one of them, like to sell it as, but the planning's done for you, and that's just not the truth. Teachers are going to spend a lot of time this first year, and they're going to be frustrated, many of them, and some of them downright angry because they just don't understand. These are required by law. And we were thoughtful about our selection and we'll be thoughtful about fidelity and implementation. So I think it is difficult. Brand new people tend to be less averse to the new curriculum model because they don't know the difference, right? And in terms of how we're preparing, one of the things that I'm doing is I've partnered with local colleges and universities, and as we sampled different curriculum materials, those that we did not select, I donate to their education program because those students need experience with high quality instructional materials, scripted curricula, et cetera, so that they can come in and at least have a frame of reference and some background. But it is, the change is hard, is a challenge. The rigor embedded in the curriculum, when you're asking a kindergartner to produce readers, right? When 10 years ago, you didn't expect students to be reading even what we call CVC words, a consonant, vowel, consonant word, until this last half of that year. And full sentences, you weren't looking into that seriously until first grade, where now there's some expectation for those literacy skills. And again, I'm not anti-rigor, but it's a complete mindset shift and adjustment. And when you have veteran teachers who've been doing this for a long time, who heavily believe in play-based learning, or veteran teachers at the high schools who are like, I'm distinguished. I'm now required by law to teach this, and we have a distinguished rating. What? So those are going to be just things that we overcome, and we're working on coaching through that, being clear, allowing flexibility where we can, because we still need to bring that teacher magic. But the struggle is real.
One thing that goes to that also is child development. And it's unfair to push a child that's not quite there into that, because it then builds frustration, which
Right.
then builds hatred to
Or
school,
Yeah.
reading,
And it shapes
whatever.
attitudes around their self-esteem
Yeah.
and confidence.
So-
That's what gets.
And school.
And school, right. Where I believe elementary, my philosophy is like, it's our job to build foundational skills while building a love of learning and fostering curiosity. And we're not necessarily in a position where that can be our focus. I mean, it can be, but you won't be happy with us when we bring the data. And we wouldn't be happy with ourselves. So that's just, it's a season of change in the field and across the state, for sure.
Did we see this level of rigor prior to COVID, or is this the state trying to catch up from COVID?
The impetus for high quality instructional materials has just been within the last 2 years. And in being legislated, it was first legislated in the English language arts for the elementary level. This year, we saw it in House Bill 2686, legislated in math, and then an extension to both of those where it's gone K-12 in the 4 core curriculum areas. So we're going to be bound to adopt in social studies and science K-12. Now, the state doesn't have lists of what's considered high quality material. And some people say we won't get it till 2030. I don't believe it'll be that long. It is, the state's building it while they fly it a little bit, I would say. I don't love the idea of getting on a half-built plane, but that's where we are.
They did that with SOL testing.
So they're working, and I'm not trying to be disparaging to them. It's just different when you live where the rubber meets the road. I think their intentions are well-meaning. It's just in
Yeah.
practicality.
And it's happening more frequently. And to be honest, I'll say it happens with changes in Richmond. And so these things come in cycles. And quite frankly, those who have been around have seen it all come through, right? Where the measures change and the tests change. And so that's the reality of where we're at, and then working through that. At the end of the day, and I was going to save this comment, but we can't discount the fact of what we just all participated in and witnessed on Saturday. And I say that for a reason. Because in our school division, we graduate a very high percentage of our students as compared to others. And that's something we should be extremely proud of. And I'm extremely proud of as superintendent. So when we talk about what matters, it matters, I think, to Jason's point of understanding developmentally where our kids are at. And then we're not out here to fix anybody, right? That's not what we do. We're not producing widgets as fast as we can. We're taking a little human being child and helping them grow, some at faster rates than others. But ultimately, as a school division, our goal is that they graduate, right? And they graduate with skills that they can take out into the world. And I would say that collectively as a whole, and when we look at it as a team, pre-K-12, that's what's happening. So that growth factor in this is big.
Yeah.
To see kids grow is really important. Even if they're scoring 500s on an SOL, they have room for growth. And that's important. So
Well, I think that you have far more positive viewing of this. I do agree. That is what we want to see. I'm very frustrated for all of you. I'm frustrated for our teachers in the classroom. And I think that it's not a comment to any of you all, but to our state leaders. You have a mass exodus of educators, and these are the reason why. You keep moving the goalpost. You are frustrating them, and you are adding excess, unneeded pressure to our students. I'm all about holding a child's feet to the fire. Like, you can do this, pumping them up. I love all of that, right? Like, make them work hard. But some things are a bit excessive, and I know that that's out of all of our control here. And I know that you all will do your best to implement that. And I just want to voice that for the educators in the classroom that always feel like you're constantly moving the goalpost. Everything that I'm doing is not good enough, and they are doing very well. And we should just really pour into them that we're proud of them, because it takes a lot for year after year. It's easy when you come on and you're not frustrated because you haven't had the goalposts moved so many times. So you are like, oh, I can take that. But when you are seasoned, and we need our seasoned educators, we need them. And so just to voice that, you know, it's okay to be frustrated, and we really appreciate you, and we appreciate your patience, and we appreciate you understanding that this has nothing to do with anybody in this room. Right? More importantly than that, it doesn't. And but thank you for trying to implement a lot of this thing that really, and quite frankly, for the high school situation, that is not equitable at all. And so I really don't like to hear that word when we really can't give it. So again, that's for our state to really take a good hard look at what we're passing down and putting our check marks for pass or fail or whatever your percentages are, because they're not fair and they're not equally or fairly weighed.
Well, for me, and I know you'll get this too, for most of us sitting here, through the years, and bringing back to the point of about 15 years ago about the growth model, how all that was coming about, and it's been 15 years building, and how long it's taken to get it implemented and come to fruition. But the problem is going back to what Renee just spoke about. It's not about just moving the goalposts. That's easy. You can sort of predict moving the goalposts. But what happens is you're playing football, and then they want to change it to baseball. Then they want to change it to basketball. That's the problem.
Agreed. It's a great way.
So you can handle the goalpost move because you can predict. But you can't predict, well, this year you're playing football. But we're not going to tell you till January that you're now playing baseball. So that's the problem. And the problem has been, state level, that too many people have been given opportunities to make decisions in education that has no educational background, has no knowledge of child development and what is best for them. And that's what we're living with. So I appreciate the growth model because to some it may look like it's going to hamper you, but it doesn't. It really is going to help you a lot more. So I wish it would happen before 15 years went by, but it's here now. So I think you're going to get that piece as a little bit of pat on the back. And I just recently listened to a thing that Dr. Lane had done, kind of poorly explain it, but he did explain it. But so I think that's going to help us in a lot of ways, where we're going to take the dig, and you noticed it in January, where you're going to go back because of a subcategory. So I'm just waiting for when we look at some of those scores, and because we've been given some preliminary information about what the pass rates are. But my next question goes to the pass score changes, because I know on some of the EOC courses that the pass scores, I can't remember now, one was 53, so you had to your pass is a 53% on that test. And this is always hard to explain to some people.
So you have to get a couple more than half correct.
Yes,
is the
to
easiest way
pass
to
the
look at
test.
it. That's certainly what it used to be. Yeah,
Yes.
and on those flat SOL tests, the high school, for example,
EOC.
it's still the end of course. It's still like that. It's not quite as cut and dry with the cats.
Right, no, because they go up with how your performance is done. But on the EOC one, do we know what maybe possible they're changing from? I mean, are they going from like you got to get 53% right to 58%? How much of a move, or how much of the goalpost move are they doing on those? Do we know? Is there any anticipating what's going out there, or is it they're keeping that under wraps?
I've heard general comments about, a pass is going to be a 424 in terms of the scores. 400 is no longer the same. Now, whether that means the same thing in terms of what you're talking about, I haven't heard.
And it will
Right?
be
Because we can
different by
play with
case.
numbers all day long, right? A 424 and a 400 could actually mean the same thing in terms of competency.
Are they recalibrated?
But how they get that?
How they
is-
get that, I don't know.
How they get that is by doing the cut score.
Right.
So if you raise it from passing as 53 up to being now 59, that's how you're going to get that 400 to 425
Yeah,
in a sense.
right.
So, but they haven't released of how they're going to go about doing that yet. So we don't know when that's going to
They
happen.
released it, but then there was a ton of feedback. The Superintendent's Association, they went back to public comment, and then they started phasing. So this year was sort of the study year. Next year, they're going to increase, and then the year after, there's talk that they'll increase again, like.
But do we know what the increase is?
I don't. I've not seen the
I've not
most
seen a
recent
chart
draft.
That's updated based upon the
Yeah,
feedback.
so
we
that,
get.
it's all part of that updated, consolidated plan, not to be confused with the titles that's before the
Right.
Board of Ed right now, and I believe will be voted on hopefully the 24th and 25th of this month. There's some red line changes in that document, but it's a beastly document, and I wasn't all too familiar with the initial. So, yep, all right. Sorry.
All right, so just one of the components I talked about for a lever of change was leadership consulting. As you all know, we've partnered with LDMB, with Dr. Alderfer, who used to contract with us to provide some support here. He's continued, but in a different capacity, funded under our Title II federal grant funding. And this work is specifically focused on our 3 schools that are federally identified for support based upon last year's data. So those are the schools he's been working with directly. The idea, the concept behind this is they're doing a book study and focusing a lot of that work on high leverage practices that Dr. Alderfer is leading them through. But the powerful thing here is that we're not just working with principals, we're also working with distributed leadership amongst teachers. So to have more of a true school improvement team that's not just your principal, your AP, and your counselor. So that work is ongoing with training, I believe, is coming up next week or the week after.
16th and 17th.
Yep,
is
2
the
days on site here for our teams, which will be exciting for them, and then ongoing implementation meetings with those teams as the year starts, as well as some collaboration with JME TTAP as a part of that. We are looking at the evaluation of that program to see if there's a need or a desire to continue, which we'll do certainly based a lot upon participant feedback as well as visible and measurable implementation of anything that's been focused on from a high leverage practice in a school improvement team to see if that sticks. That's a hard thing to do, particularly when you have folks in your buildings that are already working in their classrooms and doing other things that aren't necessarily directly involved with school improvement. So I'm excited to see the outcomes of that and see how that goes. In addition, the other benefit of this consulting is the crosswalk that it provides with VDOE. So when we look at, you may have heard the SIG grants, school improvement grants that our schools and improvement have. This program does crosswalk very nicely in terms of root cause identification for issues and deficiencies in student performance, focusing on EBIs, evidence-based interventions, professional learning, fidelity, data-informed decision-making, sustainability, and a focus on continuous improvement. So that work's happening. It started in late spring and will continue on through the summer into the fall. I believe our work commences in September, end of September, with that group.
So we don't know results yet, is what I think I'm hearing.
It's the
Still
planning
it's all that
phase,
stuff.
right? And then hopefully we're going to see what that team is working on over the summer, implementation in the fall throughout the entire school year. We'll know more as data becomes available for next school year's performance.
Is this a leadership team, a hierarchy of teachers across classroom?
Yeah, so you're looking at various kind of representation typically is what you want. You don't want all experienced teachers. You don't want all one grade level. You want to try to get a good cross section.
And for the 3 schools, that's Luray Elementary, H Middle, and
Shenandoah.
Shenandoah Elementary. Okay.
Are consulting fees like that in the budgeted? Do we have those things?
That's entitled to.
It's entitled
Yes,
to.
ma'am.
It's not
Yeah.
locally funded.
Okay.
Yep.
And when will we get an update from what they're doing?
So what we'd like to do is an update, I think towards early fall is what we had discussed with Dr. Alderfer. He can come sooner if we'd like, but I think that would allow us to have kind of the full cycle of the program. And he could come to the board and present and answer questions, if that works. So just looking at preliminary data, and I say the word preliminary because that's what it is, across the board, I thought it would be interesting to go ahead and put together division pass rates in math, reading, and science, just on a 3-year comparison across the board. So if you look back, the column that's in white is the 23-24 school year, the dark green is 24-25, and gray is what we have as of right now. And this is, again, raw data, looking at the most up-to-date data that we have. Doesn't take into account growth or anything like that as well. So when you're looking at it across the board, you're relatively level in math, a small decline in reading, and the same in science. So more to come on that information as we continue to break down data and take a look at that. And we'll share that with you all as a board too. And you'll have it by school as well and demographic.
Yeah, high level, it doesn't look great, but I think I hear you say this isn't holistic yet, along with the fact
Yeah.
that growth isn't included.
And growth's not included in the other ones either. Those are straight pass rates.
Okay.
But those are taking into account the entire year. And what I'm looking at here is our spring quick data pool that we've done. So we could see a minor fluctuation there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's raw data. It's
It's
no
pretty
adjustment.
raw, and it doesn't necessarily encompass summer testing and some other
There's
things.
students in there that won't count for us because they transferred in. There's any paper
Okay.
tests that were taken if not.
So this is
school.
completely preliminary,
Oh, God,
almost
yeah.
not even,
Yeah.
Yeah.
not
it's-
quite helpful.
Like, don't be shocked if there's significant variation from this to when
Yes,
the actual.
that's what we want.
Yeah.
In the good.
As long as it
In
goes
the
right
positive.
So in these, when you say math, that's third grade all the way to end of course, denominator and test taker all added together. Okay.
Yep.
Because you look at the individuals, it doesn't
Right.
look that good.
Yeah. And then just talking about policy impact, there's all types of different ways in which, as a board, this may impact policy, or you all may want to look at it as the year goes on. I've listed a few. This is not all encompassing, but some that come to mind just when we think about what may go in parallel with any efforts around improvement. Looking at grading, the school division continues to look at that, and particularly at the division level and the instructional team, of the correlation between grading and performance, and the issue with inflation of grades, and what that may or may not be communicating about student performance. So that's one we're going to continue to look at. There's a lot of pretty clear evidence out there around school divisions that address grade inflation often see improvements in terms of standards of learning assessments. It's worth taking a look at. It's not actually anything that I have my mind made up of at this time, but it is something we're looking at, and it is in policy. Looking at professional staff and probationary and continuing contract would be another thing. As we bring on people that are new, that are not licensed, I think that's a policy worth taking a look at. And how we're handling the employment status of those individuals, and how we are structuring things to best support the growth around our staff. And then lastly, just looking at policy IKF, the Virginia Assessment Program, and graduation requirements, and taking a look to make sure that that policy is aligned with where we're headed and aligned with our strategic plan as well. And next steps. So we've talked a lot about this and levers of change for the future, but really this is more focused on kind of the next 3 months, so to speak, for next steps. And what we're focused on, contrary to popular belief, we're pretty busy this time of year. and throughout the summer on prepping and preparing and taking data that we have and making adjustments and getting ready is really what this time of year is all about. As I mentioned, we've had a focus on individual work already with principals focused on their data, looking at curriculum, talking about personnel and their goals for next year. We have a lot of summer professional learning happening with both our teachers and leaders. We have principals participating in the content teaching academies at JMU over the summer. We have, I know, some teachers in Orton Gillingham today, I believe. They started that training, which is around reading and literacy. So there's a lot happening in terms of using this time in the summer to get better and get better at what we do and improve our craft. And then, as I mentioned, and we talked about, curriculum implementation is really important and something our instructional staff is going to be focused on and really working to provide clarity on that as we launch. You can buy a great textbook all day long or a great curriculum, but just putting it in front of somebody and saying go does not work. And we've proven that too many times in education. So we would like to not do that. And our team's focused on making sure we have as smooth of a rollout as possible, and get working on that as soon as we can get those materials. So, long presentation, I understand that, but we tried to provide you a comprehensive look at the framework, about the calculations, about a way for which you can synthesize the data that we're giving you as that progresses throughout the summer, so you have some context and understand where we're headed as we go into the next school year. So, apologize for the length, but we wanted to be clear and cover it all. It's a lot. So
You did a good job with it. I mean, really, because it really helps us. And we're going to have questions as you guys will continue to bring things up to us. But we probably just need to hash through some of this stuff. But I'll tell you what, I'm with you. I'm confident in our students and our teachers. I think you guys get a good plan. I'm confident with it. What I heard through the school visits that I'll mention in closing comments, very good. Good.
So I want to add to the link to this one. I'm sorry for doing that, but I have a question and a comment. Very tactical. So I've been able to meet with some of the schools recently, and one of the teachers mentioned the buddy system. So as you look into helping and how to improve their success, they did have a buddy already assigned to them. However, it was in the secondary level, whereas they were in the primary space. So that in our buddy system, as we build that out, that would be a note of making sure it's more aligned. But that the buddy system was very helpful. So that was my comment. And then the question, you mentioned growth is open for public discussion still, or public comments.
I would say the whole plan is open for public comment. So if you go to the Board of Ed page, there's a digital link. I don't believe, please, Ms. Henry, now I'm second guessing whether the date is closed. But if you go to Board of Ed and look at their general page and look at the June 24, 25 is the meeting that this is set for. I can't remember if it's on the main page for Board of Ed or if you have to go to that date separately, but there is a link for public comment.
That's still very helpful. I would say, Ms. Bryant brought it up that some of the things that we hear coming from the state are not exactly the way we would like to see them play out. So I think when we have those opportunities, we really should take advantage of that. So as you see them, please continue to keep us informed so we can voice our opinion for the community there.
Sure.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Dr. Huber, we've got the federal consolidated application.
Absolutely. So for this, you have a couple of attachments available to you in your packet. The actual consolidated application, this is an annual process for those who are new to this that we will go through together each year. And so this isn't necessarily something new, but it is a process that we bring in front of the board for feedback. And then I'll be coming June 22nd requesting action so we can meet our deadline with the state. So just at a very high level, when we talk about our consolidated application, That is the application we submit that covers our participation in Title 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we consolidate all of those into, there's essentially federal grants that go into one main application that we utilize to help support our school system, particularly our 4 elementary schools are the ones who receive support. So I'm just going to run through each grant briefly, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have or take notes, and I can bring the answers back to you when we hopefully take action. So if we look at the first program is Title I, that's our largest funding source that we utilize here in the division. That total that we estimate is always based on last year's number because we don't have allocations yet. We use that for a budget purpose, and then once the allocations are released by the state, we'll amend that application and revise it. That won't come back to you, but we will handle that internally. The total allocation is $934,698, and that is primarily funding personnel. And it funds both teachers and assistants across the division, salaries and benefits for our Title I schools. Just to make it really simple for you, of that $934,698, 99% of that is personnel and benefits. We leave a very small portion of that left over for family engagement and materials and supplies. So it's pretty simple when you look at that in total. Each of these has measurable objectives that go along with them that you'll see in the application. That application, I believe, is 114 pages long. That's attached in this, in your board docs for review. Moving on to Title II, we have a total allocation of $133,783 that we are budgeting. This allocation is really used to support our instructional staff with professional development, pursuing of licensure. We also use it to cover things such as praxis exams, license fees, and really the goal is to address teachers that are not fully licensed and endorsed through coursework and other areas, as well as using it for the recruitment of high areas of need. So that's what we were able to leverage for things like the recruitment incentives for science and agriculture teachers, as well as we use that for our special education staff and our math teachers and those stipends that they receive. So that's where those funds go. For Title III, we have a total allocation of $5,469 to administer that program. That is for our EL students. It's a very small amount, and we use that for material supplies, consumables, and supplemental materials for students and families, as well as a small percentage for professional development. And again, that's Title III just for ELs. And lastly, Title IV, you do have the option when you submit your consolidated application is you can move your Title IV allocation to Title I. It's called something called transferability. So you'll see in your application a tab actually that said transferability. And that's where we choose as a school division to transfer Title IV funds to Title I because we don't have enough funds in Title I to cover all of the salaries and benefits of the people that we employ through that grant. So we basically move that money out of Title IV to Title I. And that's for 3 additional teaching assistants at LES. So I'm presenting this to you, again, as an annual process to take your feedback. We would submit this and then make any necessary revisions. And then just so you know, the grant is continually amended after it's approved to adjust to changes or needs based upon the grant cycle because it is longer than just a month. So questions for me on federal application?
All right, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Superintendent. You're on a roll.
There we go. That's the theme of the night. All right, superintendent's update, a very brief one for you this evening. So we'll start off by just celebrating again. I kind of jumped the gun with talking about how proud we are of our class of 2026. But I want to say it again. Here's just some stats from that class. I believe there's a typo there. We do not have 2,956 seniors. Thank you. Enrolled, it just percentages, employed and enlisted. So enrolled means they're going to college or university. Employed means they're headed to the workforce. Many of you were able to attend things like the signing day at the Tech Center, which is exciting and an awesome event. And then enlisted, you saw several of those students cross the stage with their various military branches on their gowns. So moving on in terms of associate's degrees, we mentioned this earlier. We had 7 students graduate with their associates. We, as a community, and both through school-based scholarships as well as community partnerships, our students took home just over $2 million in scholarships to further their education or their workforce and employment. And that's an astounding number and something to be very, very proud of. That's helping our kids take the next step in their journey. You can be more proud of that. Just budget update. We have no budget still from the state. We're waiting on our final calc tool. We're hearing that it may be, what's the term they use? Skinny budget? Skinny budget
for
coming
schools.
out for schools only. So there's still a lot of debate over the budget from both the House and Senate. But we have heard from our legislators that they will pass a skinny budget that just funds the schools. So we're hoping we'll know that within the next couple of weeks.
I heard middle of June.
Yeah.
but-
We've heard that before, but we're waiting on that. That will help us finalize a lot of plans for next year. We do have a budget presentation that addresses FY26 coming up as well. And then just in terms of bonuses and contracts, we went through that process. Kudos to our finance team and our HR team and everyone else that contributed to that. Contracts went out on time. The information about bonuses went out, and we only had one contract not signed and returned by the due date that was set. And so that's very, very good. And we heard a lot of positive feedback in terms of how that process went. So
Have you
Just-
heard yet from this one that didn't sign? You've heard from them?
Mhm.
Okay, cool.
And then summer, I talked about this briefly in just our last presentation. We have a lot going on between working on our new teacher program, professional development plan. We're still every day working on school and division level staffing, budget prep, curriculum preparations. We're heading into the next year of our strategic plan, which is a big year in terms of getting those essential actions hitting the ground running. Our ongoing data review will have a huge facility update and study coming to you all and the Board of Supervisors June 22nd. So be prepared for that, and ongoing maintenance projects. The summertime is the time that we are really working on that. We did put a spending freeze on for the month of June in the division. So a lot of those projects are delayed or deferred until the new fiscal year. So upcoming dates: tomorrow we celebrate our retirees. We hope that you can make that. That's tomorrow at 10 a.m. You should have an invitation with all the directions and stuff that you need. I have the privilege of attending the Small and Rural Schools Symposium. I'm really excited about that. It's superintendents from across the state actually joining together in Harrisonburg. So it's great. It's right in our backyard, and that's a 2-day symposium where we're really talking about issues specific to small and rural schools, things such as staffing shortages, teacher licensure, construction, all things that we're certainly living and you all are living as a board now. So I'm looking forward to learning and making some connections with some folks in other areas that are somewhat similar to ours. And then, as I said, in June, we've dedicated the majority of that school board meeting, other than routine action that we need to take, to RRMM. and they will be prepared for a lengthy presentation on where we are at in terms of the study and some additional recommendations on phase-ins as necessary. So you'll be getting a lot of information that night and hopefully some good dialogue with the Board of Supervisors as well.
Is that meeting here or is it there?
So we still need to determine that location just because we need to pick a place where, A, we can handle folks that want to come listen and watch, but then also a place that's conducive to that presentation. I think we had some challenges last time with like the AV piece and just screens and everybody seeing it. So I'll talk to you about that kind of offline if that's okay. And we'll pick a location for that. I've got some ideas, but good question. Questions and comments?
All right, let's go to action items. Claims for payment, Ms. Miller.
Yes, thank you again, board members. You have been provided with the claim certification for June 11th, 2026, our next check run date, where total operating fund expenditures were $152,252.90. We have a Fund 2. You have not had a Fund 2 all year. Capital improvements, $152,321. This is for our new school bus. And then Fund 5 expenditures for food service, $27,609.20 for a total expenditure of $333,183.10. With this, you have been provided with the list of claims and check registers. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer.
It was one.
But one outstanding question is still the BB&T payment. What is that for?
Yeah, it's multiple items on there. There are awards for the recognition dinner that we had, the rewards for that, food for the facility study,
Just
the
a
2
credit
days
card.
at the tech. It's a credit card,
Gotcha.
Truist.
Okay.
Multiple.
Gotcha. Okay.
There's another.
There was a question regarding Hobbs
Regarding what?
Hobbs payment, what that was, did you?
Oh, yeah, the payment to Hobbs and Associates.
Right. That was for a variable frequency drive for a main pump for the air conditioner at Page High.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a one school bus was $152,000.
Correct.
I think that is really important for our community to know.
That took
One
a year
school
to get.
bus is $152,000.
A year ago.
Wild. The other thing, sorry, Jason,
No, you
the other
good.
thing I wanted to flag, and I know we flag this every time, but yet again, we see the high schools having the highest operation and maintenance fee by far. So just for all of us to keep that on our radar.
The question I have is the Chandra Electric 72,000. Is that all schools, all locations, the 10, 11 buildings that we have, or is that just?
Now, if you would take a look at your distribution report, it will show you the breakdown.
The one that was
Yes, the breakdown.
the email?
Right. So that's a very
Should break it out by
detailed
school.
report that breaks down the expenditures. Per your request a couple months ago.
I'll go back.
And it's really, you should be able to look at that and see exactly which ones were for which
Just
schools.
have to find that.
Should say claims for payment.
Yes,
Yeah, but
distribution,
there's a lot in here.
vendor distribution is what you're looking for.
I'll go back and look at that. That just stood out to me.
Sent probably.
But it also goes back to Ms. Henry's point about the high school still being, and it's been on my radar since January. So I'll ask this question again. Where are we with Johnson Controls and doing what we can do to monitor the situation at our buildings for utilities?
Yep.
Whether it be for oil or electricity.
Can't do anything till after July 1. So
Okay.
after July 1, you're going to see a PO come through where we are going to upgrade our Metasys system to the latest version, including our control units.
And that's at the two high schools.
Because the system, I believe, the last time we updated it was 10 years ago. And so that's first on our list. The training comes after that. And then the third piece that you'll be seeing and I'll bring to you is a larger item, and that is for a long-term maintenance contract from Johnson's for our boiler systems. That one we still need to look at and review because it's a high dollar amount, but they're in that order so that as soon as July 1st hits and Johnson knows this, I want to get all of our systems updated so that, like right now, the report I'm looking at, we have multiple temperature points that aren't reading. And so therefore we can't, our controls don't work essentially. And so you'll see a lot of inefficiencies with systems running and consuming energy because they don't know, and they're calling for heat when they don't need it or calling for cool when it's not required. So that's what we're doing. We're ready. I just can't do it until next fiscal year.
Teachers haven't complained that the room's too hot or too cold?
They do, but then we manually override it to adapt to that. So our control system.
So a Band-Aid to fix
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we'll go in, like if room 2 is full, we'll pull it up on Metasys and look at it, but then we'll have to manipulate the system to get it to actually read what we want on the ground, boots on the ground in the room, although the system's reading something completely different.
Can somebody remind me how old the high schools are?
Oh, I'm not sure.
Estimate.
2009. So what happened is we put in this it's a very nice control system, but it's outdated and we need training for our staff.
And they are
Because
almost 20 years old now. Can you imagine?
Time for a health problem.
It's pretty sophisticated and it is a system that needs to be tended to.
Now, when
It's a cost issue.
when it's purchased, is the same system going to be purchased at both high schools and installed?
So both high schools will get updated with the newest equipment, yes.
So it'd be the same
From
one.
Johnson's.
When one person's trained on it, they can do both schools instead of each one having their own system and have to be trained in two different things. It's
Right.
one thing, one trained or several trained, and okay.
That's why I want the training to come after the upgrade.
Right.
Because if
Well,
I
that
train
makes
you on
sense.
the old system, then I'm going to
No.
have to retrain you when the
Yes.
system upgrade occurs.
Can we ask for documentation, not just, I'm assuming verbal or audio training, however we're going to train the staff, but there should be some type of guide, manual, whatever, documentation to where it'll be easier for us to transition that to somebody else when somebody retired, or however that needs to flow.
And then as far as a maintenance contract, do we have to marry ourselves to Johnson Control for that? Or can we reach out to Train or some of the other providers that are out there that may be able to maintain it?
It's a discussion to be had. The problem lies within the finger pointing effect that occurs because all of our systems, their control systems are Johnson's, right?
Right.
And that's our Metasys system. And so then when we go to maintenance of those systems and we take it to a different person, let's say it's going to be RBI for us, and they're working on it. All of a sudden something's not working. Well, it's because so-and-so's company did it. We're not responsible for something that someone else did.
Does it void the warranty over?
Yeah, and then, well, our controls do work. It was that broke them. And then or the other way around.
Right.
Or you have to get somebody to come and fix the issue and they won't touch it until Johnson's is with them because Johnson has the controls. So it's a conversation for another day because that dollar amount is large from a maintenance contract perspective, but it's something we should explore.
Yeah, that feels like it's getting us stuck in a work, I'm going to use word trap, right? They can price us however they want because we've got some of these red tape things where it's hard to work with other vendors. I'm with Britt that it should be an RFP process. We need to go out for proposals on pricing versus just going with one. I'd even be curious and I know this can be a discussion for a different time, but who locally can we hire, right? Can we give our work instead of to these bigger companies? Can we give our work to a local, I don't want to say handyman service, no disrespect to them, of course, because they might be able to do it, as long as they're certified in the proper things to support our needs. But maybe that's a different way to look at it. If we're going to hear the he said, she said game from these bigger companies, then we look at a smaller company.
Certainly provide that price breakdown. Yep.
I did have one other question. The Shenandoah Valley Regional Program, That's another really large one in here, 154,000.
Yes.
What is that one?
That's a special education. So we make several payments to them throughout the year. This payment was actually delayed because they did an audit, and so through that audit, we actually got a cheaper. It was less for us,
Okay.
and it's services that we use that we are not able to maybe secure a staff member for, but services that they provide.
Okay.
So that is always a rather large number.
And is it, you're saying we get invoiced, is it quarterly? Like-
Quarterly. Well, it's 3 times. I believe it's just 3 times throughout the year, not 4.
Are those
I
things
believe.
that we perhaps amortize for to where we can track it and not get hit with such a large amount at one time? Would
Well,
that
since
help
we're
us
on
balance
a,
anything?
it really wouldn't, since we're on a
Okay.
cash basis anyway.
Okay.
And those are hitting when school's in and before school's out. So nothing that's
Okay.
going to be accrued or anything like that.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve it.
I make a motion, we, approve the claims for payment.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we got a motion by Mr. Thomas, and second by Mr. Boswell.
Mr. Freeman.
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Ms. Henry.
Yes.
Mr. Boswell.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Yes. Resolution 2026-10.
Yeah, so this is actually an amendment to the resolution that you passed, the 2026-10 resolution to the Page County Board of Supervisors requesting the additional appropriation. So we have amended the number requesting additional local funding to $1,020,000. The basis for that decrease is several things. First of all, we've had some opportunity to actually complete payroll and payables since then to see what actual is going to be. But in addition to that, I received additional state revenue that I was not counting on, which is always exciting. I check the EDI report daily and sometimes 3 times a day, waiting for revenue. But we received state funding 51.5. We saved a little over 40,000 in the bonuses from the money that we requested from the Board of Supervisors. Also estimating the second half of June's payables to be less. We tried hard to get as much into the first half as we could. And then another major thing that I had mentioned to you is that we had purchased textbooks at the end of 2025, and those were accrued as a prepaid. It was a rather large number. I was able to speak with the accountant and get the working papers on that, and that full expense is not going to hit this year. Those, because they are not physical textbooks, if they were physical textbooks, that would likely hit the entire expense, but because they're digital, we are only going to incur part of that expense over the life of that subscription. So I have those working papers now, and the auditor was there to help me figure out the accrual, so that helped save some there. So as a result, we have lowered that number. I am still estimating the accruals and won't know until October, but this is my best estimate based on what I know.
So roughly it went down $460,000.
That's exactly right, yes.
Way to go.
I'm sure the Board of Supervisors is happy to hear that.
That's more in line with their expectation. That's what they were assuming would come.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Any questions regarding that?
Question or a motion?
Does it need to be read back in the record?
No, not necessarily. It's just the new amount. So you just need a motion to approve the new amount. As
The amended amendment.
Right.
Yep.
And,
I'll make a motion
and
to
when,
approve.
when are they going to vote on this?
So we take it next week.
Monday.
Monday.
Yeah.
Yeah. The 15th.
Okay.
So I've got a motion to accept this resolution as amended.
I'll second.
We got a second by Mr. Green, motion by Mr. Boswell. Any discussion? I don't want to get too far ahead here. Usually we have some discussion, but still, like Cody might.
I just have a question, and it's a finance question, so I don't know if it directly ties to this, but this is our last finance agenda item. we heard about IT items earlier, and it was about a $30,000 savings when we're moving to the secondary backups. Yes. Since that's a new shift, have you been able to account for that savings yet anywhere?
Not in this current fiscal year. That
be in
will,
that-
that will
that'd be in the
occur in
next budget.
FY 2027.
So that, we're not moving to that until next year.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other comments? I don't hear any, so we'll have a vote.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Henry?
Yes.
Mr. Boswell?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
Mr. Bryant?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, VSBA policy update, Ms. Clark.
Good evening, Board. I bring before you the policies I presented on May 14th. However, you will notice that I updated the summary to reflect in red those that I am pulling off action tonight because they were redone by VSBA in late May. So they're back on your informational item for tonight. Everything else stayed.
I make a motion that we approve the VSBA policy updates.
I second.
All right, got a motion by Ms. Bryan and a second by Mr. Green.
Ms. Henry?
Yes.
Mr. Boswell?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Green?
Yes.
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 Thank you.
Mr. Sanders.
Good evening again, everyone. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the VPSA grant resolution, give you a little bit of background. And so VPSA grant, it's the Virginia Public School Authority. They're a state agency that provides funding to public schools through the issuance of technology and security notes in conjunction with the Board of Education. It's a recurring state funding source that supports division technology needs and equipment replacement that supports the administration of online testing. Divisions are allocated $50,000 plus $26,000 for each school in the division. A local match of 20% must be expended, 25% of which must be toward training. That all equates to, for us, $258,000 in grant funds to be expended with a local match of $51,600, of which $12,900 must be spent on training. Funds are used to support instructional technology, student and staff devices, infrastructure, and related technology needs in alignment with division priorities. The annual resolution is required to authorize the VPSA grant funds in next year's budget. This is an annual action that allows us to include those funds in the upcoming budget and continue planned technology replacement and support efforts. And these notes are essentially municipal bonds that investors can purchase. Learned that today. So, if you have any questions other than that, I'll be happy to answer them.
Did we budget for the local match?
We did.
And what sort of training is the training funds paying?
So recurring, we usually use it for like things like Power School training to send our secretaries and some of our central office members, new guidance people to get more familiar with Power School. We do several other technology trainings, try to gear it towards, like I'll send some of our instructional technology resource teachers to things like ISD and VISD and things like that. So things along those lines.
Does anyone attend Power School University? through this?
Yes. So actually, in the last several years, that's one of the primary things that uses up that training budget. Secretaries, actually, I have, I think, 6 or 7 people. There's a remote one coming up in July, and so I've got people doing that.
So where's that one held?
It's going to be a remote one. So they
Oh, so
do
it's
they
down
do
here.
virtual ones and they do on-site ones.
Okay.
The virtual ones are more accessible for people.
And economic. Yeah. I went to San Diego on mine, so it's intense. So 7 in the morning to 7 at night, you're in that university. So it sounds fun to be in San Diego, but it's intense.
Would you all like for us to read this in record if there's a motion?
Well, usually we read it in the motion, before we do a vote, so if you want to read it in, we'll do that.
I'll be happy to do that. Resolution of the Page County School Board of Page County Public Schools declaring its intention to reimburse itself from the proceeds of one or more grants made by the Commonwealth of Virginia for certain expenditures made and/or to be made in connection with certain capital improvements. Whereas Page County Public Schools is a political subdivision organized and existing under the laws of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and whereas the division has paid beginning no earlier than July 1st, 2026, and will pay on and after that date, the date hereof, certain expenditures in connection with the capital project as more fully described in Appendix A attached hereto, and whereas the Page County School Board of the Division has determined that the money previously advanced no more than 60 days prior to the date hereof and to be advanced on and after the date hereof to pay the expenditures are available only for temporary period, and it is necessary to reimburse the division for the expenditures from the proceeds of one or more grants to be made by the Commonwealth of Virginia from the proceeds of its tax-exempt equipment notes. Now therefore be it resolved by the board as follows. Section 1, the board hereby declares the division's intent to reimburse the division with the proceeds of the grants for the expenditures with respect to the project made on or after July 1st, 2026, which date is no more than 60 days prior to the date hereof. The division reasonably expects on the date hereof that it will reimburse the expenditures with the proceeds of the grants. Section 2, each expenditure was and will be of a type properly chargeable to a capital account under general federal income tax principles determined in each case as of the date of the expenditure. In Section 3, the maximum cost of the project is expected to be $258,000. Section 4, the division will make a reimbursement allocation, which is a written allocation by the division that evidences the division's use of proceeds of the grants to reimburse an expenditure no later than 18 months after the later of the date on which the expenditure is paid or the project is placed in service or abandoned, but in no event more than 3 years after the date on which the expenditures is paid. The division recognizes that exceptions are available for certain preliminary expenditures, costs of issuance, certain de minimis amounts, expenditures by smaller issuers, based on the year of issuance and not the year of expenditure, and expenditures for construction projects of at least 5 years. In Section 5, this resolution shall take effect immediately upon its passage on the 8th day of June, 2026.
I recommend the resolution be accepted.
Is that your motion? Okay, motion by Mr. Bogdan to accept it as written. Read. And I'll give it to Cody for the second.
Mr. Boswell.
Yes.
Mr. Brady.
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Ms. Henry.
Yeah.
Ms. Bryant.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Before we let Mr. Samples go, I wanted to just share with you, I did again talk with some recent schools, IT stuff related. So Schoology is a big shift from our elementary schools to how the kids are using it and how the parents need to stay involved and use it as well at that middle school level. So I shared with some of that administration at both schools of this is a big transition. Is there anything that you can maybe in the future recommend for parents or even students to help them learn how to use the tool better? And I know I'm putting you on the spot, so I don't expect an answer right now, but if you can kind of help me think through how we can improve some of that understanding for the tool for both a parent and a student.
Sure. I will do some research on that and we'll bring some information back to you. if
Thank
that's
you so
okay with
much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any kind of information written form that you could send to him?
Oh, sure, I can put something together.
Would you like that or the?
Okay, not a problem at all.
Okay, yeah. Okay, our last 505, approval of the valedictorian salutatorian, Dr. Huber.
Yep. Good evening, members of the board again. This evening I am bringing for action a recommendation as superintendent for valedictorian and salutatorian. As you're aware, this has been an information item on our agenda in prior board meetings. At the last board meeting, we were tasked with sending out a survey across the division, which did occur. I'll give you the results of that survey and then I'll state my recommendation and we'll go from there if that's okay. So based on the survey results, we had 97 responses to the survey that was sent out. And the survey asked a variety of questions looking at both option 1 and option 2. Option 1 is an implementation for the upcoming 26-27 school year. Option 2 was delayed implementation for the 27-28 school year. We took several phone calls and emails that went along, kind of that survey initiated. with folks asking questions, both students, parents, and stakeholders alike, with various questions about how the GPA would be calculated, to why the rationale for the specific 4.5 versus the 5 for 3 courses. And that was a big talking point, and I think something we had to explain throughout, which will definitely be included in our FAQ page that will come with whatever decision is made. And explained that to those who we discussed this with, that those courses are only adjusted for a hand calculation of valedictorian and salutatorian. The student's overall GPA is not affected. So this is only the change in those 3 courses we discussed at the last meeting, simply for the calculation of valedictorian and salutatorian, because other students do not have access to those courses. So that was one of the main questions we answered. Overall, from just the survey results, there was clear majority support for option 1. 69% preferred option 1, 15% preferred option 2, 15 had no preference. There was 77% of our respondents rated restoring recognition as important or very important to them.
What was that number again?
77%. There was a consistent theme in the open-ended response section where stakeholders repeatedly emphasized the importance of recognition of academic excellence, fairness to high-achieving students, desire for implementation as soon as possible, and alignment with traditional expectations and neighboring divisions. There were some questions about just implementation concerns, weighting, tiebreakers, fairness, which we feel like can be addressed through communication and policy clarity rather than delaying implementation. So in looking at it from the division level, that's something that we feel like instead of delaying, we can handle through the FAQ and communication with parents, families, and students and staff. So in short, we do have a draft FAQ with questions that we'll continue to add upon based upon the survey. I appreciate the recommendation from the board to us at the division level to conduct that. I think it gave us some good information. But ultimately, my superintendent's recommendation is that we adopt the valedictorian and salutatorian process as written under option 1. Which would be an implementation next school.
Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, could have added that. I'm happy to take any questions or comments.
Yeah, any questions just before we get a motion? You can make comments after we did the motion.
Okay.
I make a motion to accept the option 1.
Okay. We got a motion by Mr. Boswick and a second by Mr. Brown. Any comments? Go to the vote.
Mr. Breeden?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Henry?
Yeah.
Mr. Boswell?
Yes.
Mr. Barney?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Board member comments. Start with you, Mr. Thomas. Work our way up or down, however it goes.
All right. Well, I mean, I don't know that I have a whole lot tonight other than congratulations to the class of 2026. What an awesome accomplishment. How great it was to be at both graduations, see what each and every student accomplished. The speeches of just, hey, we were all in this together. That seemed to come from everybody that spoke. That hey, even on our hardest day, there's somebody else here that is that's fighting alongside us, and that was awesome to see. So, congratulations to them, and just thank you to the staff that helped get them to this point. What an awesome time in their lives.
Yes, Saturday was a great day. It was great seeing all of their smiling faces, although they didn't seem to want to shake hands, and they're just like, I'm done, I want to go on. But it was great being there and great seeing them, and, you know, staying beside Mr. Boswick, and he was asking what school some of them were going to, and so hearing some of them state which school or what they were going to do. One was going in the Marines, one was going in with the Navy. I think one at Luray was Navy. So it was great knowing that, and a lot of them is entering the workforce. So it was great knowing that they're already thought of their career and moving forward towards it. So it was great seeing that and seeing all the families there celebrating their family member on crossing that stage. I know it's always been a great thing, but the one thing I did mention to Miss Bryant as we were staying there at Luray, because I did not notice it at Page, was all the absentia. It's like, whoa, there's a lot not here. It's like, how can you not be here for your graduation? That was a great concern to me. And she said, well, it might be because of this and this and this. And I was like, I know, but still, it's the one day that you cross that stage. And I know for myself going through high school, I gave up several different things in life just to do life. But that crossing that stage is still just a once in a lifetime thing. So my heart sank knowing that some of them were not there for whatever the reason was. But I'm grateful that many did graduate, have moved on, and hopefully next year we'll have all the same going across that stage, saying the same thing in the speeches and moving on with life. And knowing that through their speeches, some of them really get life, because you wonder, did school really do its job? You know, the parents have its role, but did school really do its job? And in a lot of ways in those speeches, school did its job of educating them and preparing them to move forward in whatever next chapter is in their life. So it was great being a part of that. So, and I look forward till tomorrow, being at the employee thing tomorrow, where I think it's the ones that's retiring. Mm-hmm. So it's the ones that's at their end of their career. So Saturday was the beginning. Tomorrow will be the ending for those who are just going to retire and go on and do their joy next in life, whether it be gardening or whatever it may be. So it'd be great to be part of both. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow.
Well, of course, I'm going to reiterate, I think we all probably will, that congratulations to the class of 2026. It is quite impressive to see, I think it was 93% in the data we saw today of employ and enroll and list. And I'm sure that other 7% has great plans as well for their next chapter. And it's exciting to know that PCPS played a really big part in that. So congratulations to all of those. I did want to make a comment to our community. I think it was Dr. Huber that said there was 97% or 97 folks that responded to the survey. We have 2,700 kids enrolled. Somebody can correct me on that. So it's 5%, right? Quite a bit below 5%. So I would just encourage our community, stay involved. We want to hear from you. That's what we're here for, of course, to support our educators, our students, but we are here to be a voice for you guys as the community. So please respond when you are given the options. And thank you as well for coming in today for a citizen comment.
Oh, I've got the good and the bad. The bad, I think, is all this comparisons of scores, and SOL, and here and there. You know, that kind of stimulates how do we measure against other things? Because I often hear people say, "Oh, damn it, that's not," you know. And I wonder whether we could graph our SOL scores on a macro level, not a micro level, on a macro level, against SAT and PSAT scores. And just see, you know, if we're going up here in math, does it reflect? You know, there's a validation available somewhere. It would take someone's part of me, and there's many, many of those to set that up, but I think that'd be worth taking a look at. If we want to say we're doing great, let's show it in another place. And then the good, it was fun shaking all those hands. And I think what really struck me is I never talked to a single young person, didn't say kid, a young person, and asked them what's next, that they'd go, I don't know. Yeah. They all had something they're going to do it. And that's fantastic. I take that back to growing up in a small town, you know, where, yeah, you knew what you're going to do. You're going to end up in the coal mine, you know, or out on the farm. And that was it. But these kids all had sights set. And I think that's reflective of this organization. That doesn't just happen. So thank you all for your efforts.
Well, I vented earlier, so, but thank you. Thank you all for your hard work and for the staff that, are also going to learn all this new training. I appreciate your patience, and I know that you all will make this happen. I know that you will. And just a voice that we appreciate your patience, and we appreciate the learning curve that you all are willing to take on. So this, the feedback for the valedictorian and salutatorian, I know that I had made the comment. I mean, I'm glad that we pushed it out, but, I had made the comment, it can be eliminated without any feedback. So why do we have to push it out, to reinstate it? But I'm really happy to see the percentage because we have a lot less activity. This should show how important it is, 77%. So when I see it that way, there's a lot of people aren't weighing in on anything. As Ms. Henry was talking about, get involved, make your statements. This is major feedback. This is what the community wants. I'm excited to recognize these students. They have worked very hard. And so, yeah, congratulations to the class of 2026. It was a great day, and it was a bittersweet day for me, but I loved every minute of it. And thank you for both high schools. I know that's a heavy day, and but it was beautiful. And thank you.
So I went to visit a couple schools at the end of the year and sat in a classroom, and it was interesting to hear how the students were so anxious about their test scores. It told me how much engaged they were. Right? And they wanted to know if they passed, what have you. And then I went to another school, and there was a teacher from a different department, and he said, "Did you see our math scores?" And I said, "Yeah, I saw them." I said, "Really good." He says, "They're superstars, those teachers." And he says, "I knew the students were going to do well because none of them talked about their SOLs." And I said, "Why do you think it?" Because they were prepared, right? So that's the work that our teachers and our students have done. You guys are helping lead different things. And the challenges that's why I'm confident in the challenges, that we can meet these challenges, as we give people what they need. Mm-hmm. The climate surveys are out there. How long do they have to do?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. Mm-hmm. So this would be something that I like to see, how our schools are doing. I think we're going to have improvements in some of those areas for sure. So I encourage everybody to go out and take those. And I just appreciate you guys letting us join you with the graduations. I think it's important to shake the hands of the kids because you got to wonder why you're sitting on this board. And when you sit there with the graduates and see what goes on, that's why you're there, right? So that's why it's important. And our 622 meeting is a big meeting. We're going to get data that we're going to have to do things with. The board supervisors are going to know what RRMM's telling us, and budget issues are still there that we addressed tonight, and it's important for 622. So many people can get out, many citizens, and I'd encourage our board members to reach out to some citizens and say, you need to be there to hear what's going on. So other than that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Session. We're going to adjourn the open session?
No.
Okay, motion to go into closed session.
I'll make a motion that we go into closed session to discuss personnel pursuant to section 2.2-3711A1 pertaining to discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for school board employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salary, discipline, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of the school board.
I'll second it.
All right, got a motion by Mr. Thomas and second by Mr. Bodwick.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Mr. Booth.
Yes.
Ms. Henry.
Yes.
Mr. Bodwick.
Yes.
Mr. Bryant.
Yes.
Yes.